Does having toxic narcissistic family members make it harder to date? It sure does. Having toxic narcissistic family members does make it a little bit more challenging to date because nobody wants to deal with toxic people. You know, if a man marries you and you have toxic family members, he is marrying into dysfunction. And a lot of people that have gotten married have married into dysfunction. There are men that are married that married into dysfunction. And most of the time, they did not know that her family members, some of her family members were toxic. Why? Because the woman was not forthcoming about that information because she desperately wanted a man, or two, she was not aware that her family members are narcissistic because she's not educated on narcissism. Nobody's family is perfect, but there are a lot of families that are toxic, narcissistic, and dysfunctional. My family is dysfunctional and toxic because of my narcissistic mother. You know, toxic, narcissistic parents, they divide and conquer, they triangulate their children against one another. You know, my mother is the main reason why my family is so toxic and dysfunctional. And although I do have good relationships with my siblings, you know, I do not have a good relationship with one of my sisters. She's a narcissist. My mother is a narcissist. Yes, I love my family. Yes, I love my sisters, my brothers, my mom, but you know, I'm going to be transparent about the fact that my family is dysfunctional, you know, and that's not something I'm going to hide from a man. That's not something I'm going to hide. I'm going to be forthcoming about that information, you know, because that's crucial information. That's a deal breaker for most people. You know, it's not something that you need to share on the first date, but when things start getting serious, you know, if your family is toxic, you need to be forthcoming about that information and transparent. That way he can make a decision whether or not he wants to continue dating you. And having toxic narcissistic family members, you know, some men may not take you serious because, you know, if a man marries you, you know, he wants to have a relationship with your family members, his in-laws. And if you don't have the best relationship with your family because they're toxic, he can't have a good relationship with them. He's going to have to go low or no contact with them too. Because those are his in-laws. He's going to be marrying into dysfunction. But if a man really likes you and he sees you as the one, his wife, he's going to care that you have toxic family members. He's not going to not care, you know. But at the same time, he's not going to be okay with that. He's not going to be okay with that, but he's going to be understanding of the fact that you have toxic, narcissistic family members. I mean, that is not your fault. You, like me, having a toxic, narcissistic mother and a narcissistic sister is not my fault. Narcissists are created, they are not born. So there are two ways that narcissists are, that people become narcissists. Either it's their upbringing. They were either spoiled as a child and put on a pedestal. They got everything they wanted. Their ego was essentially stroked all of the time. Or they were abused and neglected as a child. They were abused. Those are the two ways that people become narcissists: childhood abuse and neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or they were spoiled rotten as a child. Now, I'm not going to get into the dynamics of why my mother is a narcissist, but, you know, yes. So I'm not going to share that, but my mother is a narcissist. You know, my sister is a narcissist, you know, and so that is not your fault. You having toxic family members is not your fault. You know, it's not your fault. So, but still, that is a deal breaker for most people. So whether you are a man or a woman, if you are dating someone and things are getting serious, that is something that you need to be forthcoming and transparent about. You need to let them know, not like on the first date. You know, if you tell them on the first date, obviously they may ghost you. And if they ghost you, that just means that, you know, that was a deal breaker for them. Nobody wants toxic in-laws. So I would say when things start getting serious, just be forthcoming about it. And if he ghosts you, then that was a deal breaker for him. But if he is understanding of that, he's not okay with it. Nobody's ever okay with dating someone who has toxic family members. But they will be understanding of that if they really see you as the one. If he doesn't see you as the one, then he's not going to take you serious. He's not going to want to deal with that. You know, and if he does take you serious, if he does see you as the one, or if she sees you as the one, if you are a man watching this video and you have toxic narcissistic family members and you disclose that information to her, that you have a toxic father or a toxic mother or toxic siblings, toxic narcissistic siblings, and she is understanding of that and she wants to continue dating you, then that just tells you right there she sees you as the one. But if she doesn't see you as the one, or he does not see you as the one, then that will be that they're not going to want to continue dating you. It's a deal breaker. I mean, so yes, having toxic narcissistic family members does make it a little bit more challenging to date, because that's a deal breaker for most people. Nobody wants to marry into dysfunction. Nobody wants toxic in-laws. Nobody wants to date somebody or marry someone like that has toxic family members. But what a lot of people do, they sweep it under the rug. They know their family is toxic. They know their mother is a narcissist. You know, that's going to be his mother-in-law. If he marries you, your mother will be his mother-in-law. Or if your father is a narcissist and he marries you, your father is going to be his father-in-law. And he's going to have to deal with their foolishness. You know, so if you're low and no contact with them, he's going to have to be low and no contact with them too. Or if you're a man, she's going to have to be low and no contact with them too. Or both, low and no contact. I'm both low and no. I do both with my mother. I'm currently no contact since July 10th of this month. I went back into no contact with my mother because there was some drama that went down, and you know, and I'm going to be really taking it a lot more serious now. I was going around my mother way too often, once a week, couple times a week, few times a month, and she was using it as an opportunity to provoke me, create drama, and get her narcissistic supplies. So I decided I'm not going to visit my mother no more than once a year or once every other year. And I can kind of switch it up. So I do both, you know. So Now that I'm taking my low and no contact serious, when I do visit my mother, which will be sometime in 2027, because I'm starting to visit her, once a year or every other year. And so I'm skipping next year. There won't be any drama because she's going to see less of me. She only creates drama when I'm around her, when I visit her too often. So, I've been experimenting with low and no contact with my mother since 2017, when I learned that she was a narcissist. And I know what works. I know if I visit her more, there's drama. If I visit her less, things are fine. So, but yes, having toxic narcissistic family members does make it a lot more challenging to date, because, it's a deal breaker for most people, because nobody wants toxic in-laws. And trust me, there are men and women that are married into dysfunction that were not aware, because the other person did not know that their family members were narcissistic, because they're not educated, or they knew and they were not forthcoming about that information. They were not transparent. They swept it under the rug, and now that person has to deal with toxicity. And there are people that actually got a divorce because that dysfunction spilled over into their marriage, and it just didn't work out. So you need to be forthcoming about that information, So I don't want to make this video too long. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next upload.